Think hard, believe in the Lord and rise, and a miracle happened. Sarah Johnson held her trembling hands as she watched her daughter Emily scream in pain during the physical therapy session at the Hope Rehabilitation Center in Chicago. The 5-year-old girl hadn't felt her legs for 3 years, ever since that terrible car accident that also took her father. "Mommy, it hurts. It hurts so much," Emily cried, pointing to her legs while the physical therapist Jennifer continued the routine exercises. Ethan, her 7-year-old brother, dropped the coloring book he was holding and ran to his sister's wheelchair. His small hands gripped her fingers tightly. Stop screaming. The doctor said this is normal," Ethan whispered, but his brown eyes were filled with tears. Sarah stood up from the yellow plastic chair where she had been waiting. She had worked the overnight shift cleaning at the county hospital, then rushed to her second job at a diner, and now she was there, as she had been every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 years. "Jennifer, please stop. She's never screamed like this before." The therapist, a 40-year-old woman with her hair tied in a tight bun, sighed and let go of the girl's leg. "Sarah, you know these are just involuntary spasms. Emily's spinal cord was severely damaged. There's no chance of regaining sensation. What she's feeling are just muscle contractions." "But she's saying it hurts," Ethan interrupted, still holding his sister's hand. "Ethan, sweetheart, muscles can contract without real pain. It's like when your arm sometimes trembles on its own." Sarah looked at her children and felt the familiar weight in her chest. For 3 years, ever since she lost her husband Michael in the same accident that left Emily paralyzed, she had carried the burden of keeping the family together alone. 3 jobs to pay for physical therapy, medication, and basic household needs. "Mommy, I swear it hurts," Emily insisted, her blue eyes filled with tears. "It's like when you squeeze my hand really hard, but in my legs." Jennifer shook her head and wrote something on her clipboard. "I'll talk to Dr. Richard. Maybe it's time to reduce the frequency of the sessions. Emily is developing unrealistic expectations about her condition." The therapist's words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. Reducing the sessions meant accepting there was no more hope. It meant giving up the fight. "No," Ethan said loudly, surprising everyone. "My sister will walk again. My dad promised." Sarah felt her eyes well up with tears. Ethan was only 4 when Michael passed, but he still talked about promises his father had made, promises no child should have to carry. "Ethan, sweetheart, Daddy can't help us anymore," Sarah whispered, crouching down to his level. "But he said if we believed really hard, a miracle would happen. He said it, Mommy, the last time he came to tuck me in." Jennifer packed the equipment into her blue gym bag. "Sarah, it's best not to encourage these fantasies. The child needs to accept reality to move forward in a healthy way." As she placed Emily back in the wheelchair, Sarah noticed her daughter's legs trembling slightly. It wasn't the first time she'd seen it happen, but whenever she mentioned it to the doctors, they explained it as normal contractions. Ethan helped Mommy get Em's bag. The boy obeyed, but Sarah noticed him watching his sister's legs intently. Ethan had always been sharp for his age. Since the accident, he had taken on responsibilities no child should have to bear. She took care of her sister when Sarah needed to work, came up with games to distract her, and never complained when they had to eat fried eggs for dinner because it was all they had left at the end of the month. Leaving the rehabilitation center, Sarah pushed the wheelchair through the streets of Lincoln Park, while Ethan walked beside her, carrying his sister's pink backpack. The March sun was strong, and the asphalt radiated heat in visible waves. "Mom, why doesn't Jennifer believe that Em is feeling pain?" Ethan asked, kicking a can he found on the sidewalk. "Because doctors study a lot, sweetheart. They know about these things." "But Em knows about her pain too, right?" Sarah stopped pushing the wheelchair. Her son's question made her think, what if the doctors were wrong? What if there was a possibility they weren't seeing? "Ethan's right, Mom," Emily whispered. "I feel it. It's not like how you explained tickles. It's different. It's like someone's pinching me from the inside." That night, after bathing the kids and making a simple dinner of rice and eggs, Sarah stayed awake in the small living room of the 2-bedroom apartment they rented in downtown Chicago. The bills piled up on the Formica table, and she mentally calculated whether she could pay them all by the end of the month. Ethan appeared in the bedroom doorway, barefoot and in his pajamas. "Mom, aren't you sleeping? Come here, sweetheart." The boy curled up on the couch beside her. Sarah ran her fingers through her son's blonde hair, noticing it needed a trim. "Ethan, do you remember what Dad said about Em?" "Yeah. He said the Lord works miracles when we really believe, and that I had to take care of Em and you until he came back." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. Michael had been gone for 3 years, but Ethan still expected him to return. "And do you believe Em can get better?" "I do, Mom. Every day I ask Dad to help her from heaven." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. The next morning, Sarah took the kids to the park near the rehabilitation center before the session. It was a small green space with some old playground equipment, but Ethan loved pushing his sister's wheelchair along the dirt paths. "Em, close your eyes and imagine you're running," Ethan said, speeding up. Emily laughed, stretching her arms out like wings. Moments like these made Sarah believe things might actually get better. "Ethan, slow down," Sarah called, but she was smiling too. That's when Emily started screaming again. "Stop! Stop! It hurts!" Ethan braked the wheelchair abruptly, almost tipping it over. Sarah ran to them. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "My legs are pinching again, Mom. Worse than yesterday." Sarah glanced around. Other mothers with kids were in the park, some watching curiously. She knelt and touched her daughter's legs through the pink sweatpants. "Here, Em. Where does it hurt?" "Here." Emily pointed to her right thigh. "And here." She pointed to the left. Sarah pressed lightly and Emily flinched, trying to pull away. "She reacted, Mom. She reacted," Ethan shouted excitedly. "Shh, Ethan. It can't be." But Sarah had felt it. When she pressed her daughter's leg, Emily had definitely tried to move. It was impossible, but she was sure of what she'd seen. At that afternoon session, Sarah told Jennifer what had happened at the park. "Sarah, please, these are just illusions." Emily's brain might be sending mixed signals, creating phantom sensations, but there's no real neurological connection between her brain and her legs. "But I saw her react when I touched her. Involuntary reflexes. The body can react even without conscious feeling." While Jennifer worked with Emily, Sarah watched her daughter's every move. Then she saw something that made her eyes widen. When Jennifer bent Emily's left knee, the toes on her right foot twitched slightly. "Jennifer, did you see that?" "What? Her toes? They moved when you bent her other leg." Jennifer looked at Emily's feet, but they were still. "Sarah, you're seeing things that aren't there. That's normal for mothers in situations like yours. Maybe you should talk to a psychologist." Sarah felt a mix of anger and frustration. Everyone acted like she was imagining things, but she knew what she had seen. After the session, while waiting for the bus, Ethan tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, I saw it too." Em's toes moved. Sarah looked at her son. Ethan was just a child, but his eyes were serious and determined. "Are you sure, Ethan?" "Yes. And last night when I went to say goodnight to her, I saw it again. The toes on her left foot moved when I kissed her forehead." That night, Sarah lay on the narrow bed she shared with her children and watched Emily sleep. The girl was on her back, her legs stretched out over the thin blanket. It was almost 2 in the morning when Sarah saw it. Emily's left foot moved. It wasn't a big movement, but it was real. The toes curled and relaxed, as if she were trying to stretch. Sarah got up slowly and moved closer. She gently touched the sole of her daughter's foot. Emily's toes curled again. This time, there was no doubt. Emily was reacting to the touch, even in her sleep. Sarah had to cover her mouth to keep from shouting with joy. Tears streamed down her face as she watched her daughter sleep. Maybe Ethan was right. Maybe a miracle really was happening. The next day, Sarah called the rehabilitation center and asked to speak to Dr. Richard, the doctor in charge of Emily's case. "Dr. Richard isn't available today. Can I take a message?" the receptionist said. Sarah quickly explained what she had observed the night before. "Mrs. Sarah, I'll note it down, but the doctor always asks caregivers not to get their hopes up. The reactions you're describing are normal in patients with spinal cord injuries." Frustrated, Sarah hung up. It seemed like no one wanted to listen to what she had to say. During breakfast, Ethan made silly faces at Emily, who laughed loudly as she ate her bread with margarine. "Em, try moving your toes," Ethan suddenly asked. "Why?" "Just try. Pretend they're little worms trying to wiggle out of the dirt." Emily stared at her feet with concentration. Sarah stopped washing the dishes to watch. "Are they moving?" Emily asked. Sarah looked closely. There was an almost imperceptible movement in her right foot. "Yes, sweetheart, they're moving." "Really?" Emily smiled. "I'm trying really hard. It's difficult, like when you try to wiggle your ears." Ethan clapped excitedly. "I knew it! I knew you could do it!" Sarah knelt beside her daughter's chair. "Try again, Em." Slowly. This time the movement was clearer. The big toe on her right foot moved up and down twice. Sarah hugged her daughter tightly, crying, "Oh Lord, Emily, you're doing it." "Mom, don't cry. It's a good thing," Emily said, wiping her mother's face with her little hand. "I'm crying because I'm happy, my love. Mom is so happy." Ethan threw himself into their hug. "Now Em can play ball with me." Sarah knew it was too early to celebrate, but for the first time in 3 years, she felt a glimmer of hope growing in her chest. That same day, Sarah decided to skip work in the afternoon to take Emily to a private appointment with another doctor. She used the money she had been saving to buy a birthday present for Ethan. Dr. Margaret Wilson worked at a small clinic in Wicker Park. Sarah had found her name during an internet search on her lunch break. "Mrs. Johnson, I read the account you sent by email. I know it's hard to accept the initial diagnosis, but complete spinal cord injuries like Emily's rarely show recovery." "But doctor, she's moving her toes when I ask her to. I've seen it several times." Dr. Margaret, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses hanging around her neck, examined Emily carefully. "Emily, can you try wiggling your toes for me?" The girl closed her eyes and concentrated. Slowly, the big toe on her right foot moved. The doctor looked surprised. "Interesting. This shouldn't be possible with the type of injury described in the records." "Does that mean she could get better?" Ethan asked, holding his sister's hand. "Well, Ethan, let's run some tests to better understand what's happening." Over the next hour, Dr. Margaret tested Emily's reflexes, pressed different points on her legs, and asked the girl to try moving various parts of her body. Emily can slightly move 3 toes on her right foot and 2 on her left. There's also a small reaction in the muscles of her left calf. Sarah held her breath. What does this mean? It means the injury might not be as complete as the initial diagnosis suggested. It's possible some neurological connections were preserved, or new ones are forming. "So she could walk again?" Ethan pressed. "Ethan, it's too soon to tell, but I'll recommend some new tests and a different kind of physical therapy. There are specialized treatments that could help cases like Emily's." Sarah felt her heart race. For the first time in 3 years, a doctor was talking about possibilities instead of limitations. "How much will these tests cost, doctor?" "Insurance covers most of it. I'll give you the referrals." On the way home, Emily slept in Sarah's lap during the bus ride. Ethan stared out the window, quieter than usual. "What are you thinking about, Ethan?" "I'm thinking Dad was right. If we believe hard enough, miracles can happen." Sarah kissed her son's head. Maybe Michael had been right. Maybe faith could move mountains, or in this case make legs work again. That night, after the children fell asleep, Sarah knelt by the bed and said a silent prayer. She thanked the Lord for the hope that had returned to her heart and asked for strength to keep fighting for her daughter. When she stood up, she saw Ethan was awake, watching. "Were you praying, Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Can I pray with you?" Sarah smiled and knelt again. Ethan climbed out of bed and stood beside her. "Dear Lord," Ethan whispered, "please help Em walk again, and help Mom not be so tired, and if you can, tell my dad we're okay and that we miss him." Sarah hugged her son, trying not to cry. That 7-year-old boy carried burdens she hadn't even imagined. The following week, Sarah managed to reschedule Emily's sessions at the rehabilitation center so she could work and still take her daughter to the new tests Dr. Margaret had ordered. The first test was a more detailed MRI of the spine. Sarah was nervous as she waited for Emily to come out of the noisy machine. "Mom, it was like being inside a giant drum," Emily said when she came out. "You were so brave, sweetheart." Ethan, who had stayed in the waiting room, ran to hug his sister. What did you see in there?" "Nothing. It was dark. But I imagined I was flying in a spaceship." A week later, Sarah received a call from Dr. Margaret, asking them to return to the clinic to discuss the results. Sarah asked her neighbor, Mrs. Parker, to look after Ethan and took only Emily to the appointment. "Mrs. Johnson, the tests revealed something very interesting. Emily's spinal cord injury isn't as extensive as the initial diagnosis suggested. There's an area of the spinal cord that remained intact." Sarah felt her legs go weak. "Does that mean?" "It means there's a chance for recovery. I can't promise it will be complete, but with the right treatment, Emily could regain at least some mobility in her legs." Sarah began to cry. 3 years waiting for news like this. Why didn't the other doctors see this? The previous tests were less detailed, and sometimes the brain develops new connections over time. It's possible the progress you've been seeing is due to neuroplasticity, the nervous system's ability to reorganize itself. Emily, who had been playing with a doll in her wheelchair, looked up. "Doctor, does that mean I'll be able to run with Ethan?" "Emily, we'll work very hard to make that happen, but it will take a lot of patience and daily exercises." "I can do exercises, I'm strong." Sarah took her daughter's hand and squeezed it. "Yes, you are very strong, sweetheart." Dr. Margaret explained that Emily would need a new type of physical therapy, more intensive with specialized equipment. She also recommended nutritional and psychological support. "Is the treatment expensive, doctor?" "Part of it is covered by insurance, but some equipment and additional therapies will have extra costs." Sarah did the math in her head. Even with her 3 jobs, it would be hard to cover everything Emily needed. "I'll find a way, doctor, no matter what it takes." That afternoon, Sarah picked Ethan up from school and shared the news with him on the way home. "So Em's really going to walk again?" Ethan asked, jumping with joy on the sidewalk. "The doctor said she could improve a lot, but it'll be hard. She'll need a lot of treatment." "I'll help. I can do exercises with her." Sarah smiled. Ethan had always been his sister's biggest cheerleader. "Of course you can, honey. The 2 of you together are stronger." When they got home, Emily wanted to tell all her dolls the news. "Girls," she said, lining up the 3 plastic dolls on the bed, "the doctor said I'll be able to walk again. But first, I have to do really hard exercises." Ethan sat beside his sister. Remember when Mum taught us to ride bikes? At first it was hard, but then it got easy." "I remember. I fell a lot. But you didn't give up. And now you can ride without training wheels." Emily thought for a moment. "Will walking with my legs be the same?" "I think so. First it'll be hard, but then it'll feel natural." Sarah watched her children's conversation from the doorway. Ethan's maturity in handling his sister's situation always amazed her. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following week, Sarah took Emily to visit the new specialized physical therapy center Dr. Margaret had recommended. St. Luke's Rehabilitation Institute was in a farther neighborhood but had modern equipment and therapists specialized in spinal cord injuries. Dr. Robert Stevens, head of the Neurological Rehabilitation Department, examined Emily himself. "Mrs. Johnson, Emily's case is truly promising. With proper and intensive treatment, I believe she can regain a good percentage of her mobility. What exactly does the treatment involve? Physical therapy 5 times a week, electrostimulation, exercises in a therapeutic pool, and a gradual muscle strengthening program. I also recommend occupational therapy to relearn basic movements." Sarah did the math. 5 sessions a week meant completely reorganizing her work schedule. "Doctor, I work 3 jobs. I don't know how I'll manage to bring her 5 times a week." "I understand your situation. Let's start with 3 times a week and see how you adjust." Emily was fascinated by the Institute's equipment. There were machines that looked like strange bicycles, parallel bars, special treadmills, and a small pool of warm water. "Can I try that thing over there?" she asked, pointing to a device that helped patients stand. "Of course, Emily, let's give it a try, Doctor." Robert positioned Emily on the support equipment. With the help of straps and bars, the girl stood for the first time in 3 years. "Mommy, I'm standing!" Emily shouted, laughing. Sarah began to cry. Seeing her daughter upright again brought back memories of before the accident, when Emily used to run around the house and climb on furniture. "How do you feel, Em?" Ethan asked. He had taken a day off from school to accompany his sister. "It's weird. It's like the world is different now. Everything seems lower." Dr. Roberts smiled. "That's normal, Emily. You'll get used to it again." During the first exercises, Emily tried moving her legs with the help of the machines. The movements were minimal, but they were there. "Excellent, Emily. You're activating the right muscles." "I'm trying really hard, Doctor. It's like I'm pushing against a really heavy door." "That's exactly how it feels. Little by little, that door will get lighter." After the first session, Emily was excited but exhausted. "Mommy, when will I be able to walk again?" "I don't know, sweetheart, but what matters is that you're trying. The doctor said it could take months or years, but I don't care. I'll try every day." Ethan took his sister's hand. "And I'll cheer for you every day." In the following weeks, Sarah completely rearranged her life to take Emily to physical therapy. She asked to change her shifts at the county hospital and the diner, arranged for the neighbor to pick up Ethan from school some days, and even brought Emily to work when she had no other choice. One afternoon, when Sarah arrived to pick Emily up after a session, she found her daughter crying in the locker room. "What's wrong, my love?" "Mommy, it's so hard. Today I tried to move my left leg and I barely could. What if I don't get better?" Sarah knelt in front of her daughter and cupped her face in her hands. "Emily, remember when I taught you how to tie your shoes?" "Yeah. At first it was really hard, remember? Your little fingers couldn't make the loops right." "That's true. But you kept trying every day, and now you can do it all by yourself." "But this is different, Mommy. It's different because it's harder. But the secret's the same. Try a little every day." Emily wiped her nose on her sleeve. "What if I never can?" Sarah's heart ached. She had her own moments of doubt, but she couldn't let Emily give up. "You know what Daddy always said?" "What?" "That we can't control the outcome, but we can control the effort. If you do your best every day, that's enough. Even if I never walk again. Even if you never walk again, you'll still be the bravest girl I know." Emily hugged her mother tightly. "Mommy, do you think Daddy can see us?" "I'm sure he can, my love. And I'm sure he's very proud of you." On the way back home, Emily slept in her mother's arms on the bus. Sarah watched her daughter's peaceful face and thought about how much life had changed in the last few months. For the first time in 3 years, there was real hope. But there was also immense pressure. What if the treatment didn't work? What if she couldn't afford everything Emily needed? What if she was setting up expectations that would only lead to more suffering? When they got home, Ethan was doing his homework at the kitchen table with Mrs. Parker's help. "How was it today?" he asked softly, seeing his sister was asleep. "Hard," Sarah whispered. But she didn't give up. Ethan closed his notebook. "Mom, can I talk to you?" Sarah laid Emily on the couch and sat at the table with her son. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I want to help pay for Em's treatment." Sarah smiled. Ethan always surprised her with his generosity. "How do you want to help?" "I can sell my toys. And I can take care of Em when you're at work so you don't have to pay for a babysitter." "Ethan, you're so kind, but you don't have to sell your toys." "But I really want to help. The remote control car Grandpa gave me could be worth a lot of money." Sarah hugged her son. At 7 years old, Ethan already showed a sense of responsibility many adults didn't have. "You know how you can help even more?" "How?" "By continuing to be the best brother in the world. Em needs you to keep her from giving up." "I'll never let her give up, Mum." That night, after the kids were asleep, Sarah stayed at the kitchen table organizing bills. Even with insurance covering part of the treatment, the extra expenses were straining the family budget. She grabbed a piece of paper and started listing things she could sell or ways to earn extra money. Maybe she could pick up more shifts at the county hospital or do house cleaning on weekends. She was so focused on the numbers that she didn't notice when Emily woke up and wheeled herself into the kitchen. "Mum, why aren't you sleeping?" "Em, you scared me. Why are you up?" "I was thirsty." "What are you doing?" Sarah tried to hide the papers, but Emily had already seen them. "Those are bills, aren't they, Mum?" Sarah sighed. There was no point lying. Emily was too smart. "Yes, sweetheart." "Is it because of my treatment?" "Don't worry about that, Em. Mom will figure it out." Emily stayed quiet for a moment, looking at her legs. "Mom, if the treatment is too expensive, I can stop." "Emily, never say that. But I don't want you to be worried because of me." Sarah got up from her chair and knelt in front of her daughter. "Emily, listen carefully. There's nothing more important in the world to me than you and Ethan. I'd work 20 hours a day if I had to, just to pay for your treatment." "Really? Really? You're my daughter. I'd do anything for you." Emily hugged her mother. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything." The next morning, Sarah got an unexpected call. It was Dr. Robert's secretary. "Mrs. Johnson, the doctor would like to speak with you about an opportunity for Emily." "What kind of opportunity?" "He'll explain better in person. Can you come in this afternoon?" Sarah managed to swap shifts with a co-worker and went to the institute with Emily and Ethan. "Mrs. Johnson, there's a new research project here at the institute, focused on rehabilitating children with spinal cord injuries. Emily would be a perfect candidate." "What does that mean?" "It means she'd have access to cutting-edge experimental treatments, completely free of charge. In exchange, we'd document her progress for scientific purposes." Sarah's heart raced. "Are there any risks?" "The treatments are safe, just more advanced than conventional ones. They include virtual reality therapy, magnetic stimulation, and a computerized exercise program." Emily was fascinated by the explanation. "It's like a video game, Mum." "Very similar, Emily. You do exercises while playing." Ethan tugged on his mother's shirt. "Mom, does that mean it won't cost money?" "That's right, Ethan." Sarah had to hold back tears of relief. Finally, a door was opening when she needed it most. "Dr. Robert, when can we start?" "Next Monday, if you'd like." Leaving the institute, the family stopped at a nearby ice cream shop to celebrate. It was the first time in months Sarah allowed herself to spend money on something that wasn't a basic necessity. "Mom, it feels like things are getting better," Ethan said, licking a chocolate ice cream. "It really does, sweetheart." "It's like Dad is helping us from up above," Emily said. Sarah looked at her children and felt immense gratitude. Maybe Michael really was helping in some way. Or maybe she was finally learning that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness. On Monday, Emily began the new rehabilitation program. The equipment was truly impressive. There was a robotic exoskeleton to help children relearn walking movements, virtual reality glasses that turned exercises into fun games, and machines that stimulated muscles with precision. "Em, today you'll be an astronaut learning to walk in different gravity," explained the physical therapist Melissa, a young specialist in pediatric rehabilitation. Emily beamed. "Really? Will I see space?" "Yes, and your exercises will help your spaceship fly better." Watching Emily use the virtual reality gear, Sarah got emotional. Her daughter laughed while walking in a virtual space station, unaware she was performing complex rehabilitation movements. "It's amazing how engaged she is," Melissa remarked. "Children respond much better when treatment feels like play." "She's always loved stories and games," Sarah explained. "That's great. We'll use that to our advantage." After an hour of exercises, Emily was tired but excited. "Mom, I made it to the moon, and my legs helped the ship land right." Ethan, who had watched everything, was amazed. "Em, you moved both legs during the game." "I did. I didn't even notice." Melissa smiled. "That's exactly the goal, Emily. When you're having fun, your brain works better." In the following weeks, Emily's progress visibly accelerated. With the new equipment and methods, she developed movements that once seemed impossible. One day, During hydrotherapy in the therapeutic pool, something extraordinary happened. Emily was floating with Melissa's support when she said, "Melissa, I think I can move my leg by myself in the water." "Try, Em, nice and slow." Emily focused and slowly bent her left knee in the water. "I did it. I bent it all by myself." Sarah, watching from the pool's edge, began to cry. "Honey, you did it." Ethan jumped with joy. "Em, you did it alone." From that day on, Emily could bend both knees in the water and even move her feet side to side. "It's like the water makes everything easier," she explained. "The water reduces your body's weight, Emily. That's why it's easier to move here," Melissa said. "When will I be able to do this outside the water?" Little by little, Em. First, you learn in the water, then on land. 3 months after starting the new treatment, Emily stood on her own for 10 seconds, holding onto the parallel bars. 10 seconds, Ethan shouted, timing it on his mum's phone. "It's a new record," Melissa said, writing it down in Emily's file. Sarah was beaming. Seeing her daughter standing again, even if just for a few seconds, was like witnessing a miracle. "Mom, my legs are shaking, but I can feel them," Emily said, focused on keeping her balance. "You're doing amazing, sweetheart." That night, Sarah called her sister Rachel, who lived in Denver. "Rach, you won't believe it. Em stood up on her own today." "Really, Sarah? That's wonderful. I was starting to lose hope, but now I really believe she'll walk again. I always told you not to give up. Emily is as strong as you are. Sometimes I think Michael is helping her from up above. I'm sure he is, sis. I'm sure he is." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the 5th month of intensive treatment, Dr. Robert called Sarah for a private conversation. "Mrs. Johnson, Emily's progress is exceeding all our expectations. She's not just part of the research project, she's becoming a case study. Is that good? It's exceptional. We want to present her case at an international neurological rehabilitation conference." Sarah was stunned. What does this mean for her? It means doctors all over the world can learn from Emily's recovery. And it also means she'll have access to the best treatments available. And for us, for you, it means never having to worry about treatment costs again. The Institute wants to follow Emily's progress until she reaches her maximum recovery. Sarah had to sit down. A year ago, she had been desperate, unsure how to pay for her daughter's basic treatment. Now, Emily was being studied by international specialists. "Dr. Robert, how is this possible? Just a few months ago, doctors said there was no hope." "Mrs. Johnson, sometimes the human body surprises us, and sometimes, when we find the right treatment at the right time, things that seem impossible happen." That afternoon, Sarah shared the news with the kids. "So doctors from other countries are going to study my sister?" Ethan asked, amazed. "That's right. Em is famous now," Emily laughed. "I'm not famous, Ethan. I'm just a girl learning to walk again." "But you're special, Em. Not everyone can do what you're doing." "Everyone can if they try really hard and have people helping them." Sarah hugged both her children. Emily's wisdom, even at 5 years old, always amazed her. 2 weeks later, Emily took her first unsupported steps. Just 3 wobbly, uncertain steps, but real steps. Sarah was at work when she got the call from Melissa. "Mrs. Johnson, you need to come here now. Emily just walked." Sarah dropped everything and rushed to the Institute. When she arrived, she found Emily standing in the middle of the physical therapy room, a huge smile on her face. "Mom, I walked by myself." "Show me, sweetheart." Emily concentrated, took 2 shaky steps, and fell into Melissa's arms. But they were 2 real, unsupported steps. Sarah cried so much she had to sit down. "Mom, why are you crying? It's a good thing." "I'm crying from joy, honey. You did it." Ethan came home from school 2 hours later and found the family still at the Institute celebrating. "Em, is it true you walked?" "Yes, want to see." This time, Emily managed 4 steps in a row before needing support. Ethan shouted with joy and hugged his sister so tightly he nearly knocked her over. "I knew it. I always knew you could do it." That night, the family celebrated with pizza, a luxury Sarah hadn't allowed herself in a long time. But that day deserved a special celebration. "Mum, can I play soccer with Ethan again now?" Emily asked. "Not yet, sweetheart. You need to strengthen your legs more first. But will I be able to someday?" "Yes, someday you will." Ethan took his sister's hand. "Em, when you're ready, I'll teach you all the tricks I've learned." "Thanks, Ethan. You're the best brother in the world." Sarah watched her children talking and remembered the words Michael used to say, "Family is our greatest treasure." He was right. Even with all the hardships, they had each other. In the following months, Emily continued to progress. First, she managed to walk longer distances, then climb stairs with support, and finally run slowly. A year after starting intensive treatment, she walked unaided for a full hour during a medical evaluation. "Mrs. Johnson, I can officially say Emily has regained about 85% of her leg mobility," Dr. Robert announced. "What about the other 15%? It may come with time and continued physical therapy, but even if it doesn't, she already has enough mobility for a completely normal life." Sarah hugged her daughter, who stood beside the wheelchair she no longer needed. "How do you feel, Em?" "I feel like I've learned to fly, Mom." Ethan, now 8, watched his sister with pride. "Em, remember when you were little and scared to ride a bike?" "I do. And Dad said you just had to believe you could do it." "I remember that too. It was the same with your legs. You believed, and you did it." Emily smiled. "It wasn't just me who believed, Ethan. You and Mom did too. And Dad from heaven." 6 months later, Emily was running in the park with Ethan as if she'd never needed a wheelchair. Sarah watched them from the bench, thinking how life can change completely when we least expect it. "Mom!" Emily shouted from afar. "Look how fast I can run." "I see you, sweetheart. You're flying." Ethan chased after his sister, trying to catch up. "Hey, you're cheating. You got faster than me." "Because I practiced so much," Emily called back, laughing. An elderly woman who'd been watching the children play approached Sarah. "Are they yours?" "Yes, they are. What beautiful children, and how well they get along. They've always been very close. The girl runs so well. Does she play any sports?" Sarah smiled. The woman had no idea that 2 years ago, Emily was in a wheelchair. "She's relearning to run after an accident." "Wow, I'd never guess. She runs like she was born for it." "It's true," Sarah agreed. She really was. When the kids tired of running, they returned to the bench where Sarah waited. "Mom, I'm thirsty," Emily said, still breathless. "I'll get you water from the diner." While Sarah went to fetch the water, Emily and Ethan stayed talking on the bench. "Ethan, do you think Dad saw that I'm walking again?" "I'm sure he did, Em. How do you know?" "Because sometimes when you're running, I feel like he's smiling." Emily thought for a moment. "I feel that too. Like he's proud of us." "I think he really is. We didn't give up, right?" "We didn't. And Mom didn't give up on us either." Ethan hugged his sister. "Em, can I tell you a secret?" "Sure. Every night before bed, I say thank you for you getting better." "I say thank you too, Ethan. Thank you for having the best brother in the world." Sarah returned with the water and found her children hugging on the bench. "What were you talking about?" "We were remembering Dad," Ethan explained. "And speaking of how lucky we are to have a family that never gives up," Emily added. Sarah sat between the two and hugged her children. "Do you know what I've learned these past few years?" "What?" they asked together. "I've learned that miracles exist, but they don't just fall from the sky. We build them with love, perseverance, and a lot of faith." "What do you mean, Mum?" Emily asked. "Your miracle wasn't just you walking again, Em. It was us staying united even in the hardest moments. It was Ethan never letting you give up. It was me learning to accept help when I needed it. It was you never losing hope." Ethan reflected on his mother's words. "So you mean we made the miracle happen?" "Exactly, Ethan. We worked together to make the miracle happen." Emily stood up from the bench and faced her mother and brother. "Mom, remember when I yelled in physical therapy that my legs were hurting? I remember it perfectly. That day I didn't know it, but that pain was the start of my miracle." Sarah smiled, her eyes filled with happy tears. "You're right, my love. Sometimes miracles begin with pain but end with joy. Ethan stood up too, joining his sister. And sometimes miracles need two people believing together. Or three, Sarah said, rising to complete the family hug. As the sun set behind the park trees, Sarah looked at her children and felt deep gratitude. Michael was right when he said faith could move mountains. But she had learned that faith needed to be paired with action, love, and determination. Emily ran through the park again, this time just for the joy of being able to. Ethan chased after her, and Sarah followed, savoring every moment of that perfect evening. "Catch me if you can," Emily shouted to her brother. "I'll get you!" Ethan laughed in response. Sarah watched her children play and thought this was the true meaning of a miracle, seeing her family whole and happy after all they'd been through. 2 years later, Emily had fully recovered and was taking ballet classes, her dream since before the accident. Ethan remained her biggest supporter, attending every performance. Sarah had managed to cut back to just one job since she no longer needed to pay for expensive treatments. She used the extra time to be more present in her children's lives. One afternoon, as Emily practiced ballet steps in the backyard, Ethan approached Sarah. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Do you think if Em hadn't gotten better, we'd still be happy?" Sarah was surprised by the depth of the question. "Ethan, why are you thinking about that?" "Because today at school the teacher talked about different families and I kept thinking about ours." "And what did you think?" "I thought that even when Em was in the wheelchair, we still laughed together. We were still a family." Sarah hugged her son. "You're right, Ethan. Our family's happiness never depended only on Em walking. It depended on us loving each other." So the miracle wasn't just her walking again. No, my love. The miracle was discovering we're stronger together than apart. Emily walked over, breathless from practice. "What are you two talking about?" "Miracles," Ethan explained. "Oh, I know all about miracles," Emily said, flopping onto her mother's lap. "The biggest miracle is having people who believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself." Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead. "Where did you learn that, Em?" "By watching you. When I thought I'd never walk again, you kept believing. And that gave me the strength to keep trying." Ethan joined the hug. "And now we know we can face anything together." Sarah looked at her children and felt that Michael would be proud of the family they had become. They had weathered the storm and emerged stronger on the other side. "Kids, do you know what my favorite part of this whole story is?" "What?" they asked together. "It's knowing that no matter what happens in the future, you've learned to never give up on each other." "We'll never give up," Ethan said with determination. "Never," Emily agreed. And as the sky turned pink with the sunset, Sarah hugged her children and knew they had passed the hardest test life could throw at them, and they had done it together. Years later, when Emily became a professional ballerina and Ethan a pediatric physical therapist inspired by his sister's recovery, they still remembered that day in the park when they realized the greatest miracles are built with love, patience, and unshakable faith. And whenever someone asked about Emily's recovery story, the family answered in unison, "It was a miracle we built together, one day at a time." The end. And you, dear listener, have you ever witnessed a miracle built with love and perseverance? Share your experience in the comments. Do you think Sarah's family made the right choices? Leave your honest thoughts, and don't forget to like this story. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming tales like this one. Thank you so much for joining us.